It happened almost overnight. One day, Oregon was fighting a serious but familiar summer of fire. The next, the map of the state seemed to erupt all at once, as a wave of new blazes exploded across the landscape, and the crisis leaped to a terrifying new scale. In a matter of days, 21 new large fires have ignited across Oregon, and the total burned area has now climbed past 610,000 acres. This is no longer a fire season. It is a full-blown statewide emergency, and it is still growing. That phrase, 21 new large fires, is the part that should stop you cold. These are not fires that have been burning for weeks that everyone has been watching. These are fresh ignitions, new fronts opening up on a landscape already stretched to the breaking point. Each one a new emergency demanding crews, aircraft, and attention that were already committed elsewhere. When that many significant fires erupt in a short window, it overwhelms the entire firefighting system, and it tells you that the conditions across Oregon have reached a dangerous tipping point where the smallest spark can explode into a major blaze in hours. In this video, we are going to break down what is happening across Oregon right now, why so many new fires have suddenly erupted, and what it means for the people living in their path. We will look at the largest and most dangerous of the blazes, the communities under threat, the thousands forced to flee, and the exhausted firefighters battling on every front at once. We will explain the conditions driving this explosive outbreak and what the days ahead may hold. And most importantly, we will talk about what people in the fire zones need to know to stay safe. This is a fast-moving, still developing emergency, so stay with us, because whether you live in Oregon or simply want to understand the scale of what this state is facing, what is unfolding right now matters enormously. To understand the shock of this moment, you have to understand how quickly it came on. A wildfire outbreak like this does not build slowly and predictably. It arrives in a rush, often when a single set of conditions aligns to ignite fire across a huge area almost simultaneously. That is exactly what has happened in Oregon. 21 new large fires erupting in a short span is the signature of an outbreak. A moment when the landscape becomes so primed to burn that ignitions everywhere catch and grow at once. The most common trigger for an eruption like this is lightning. When dry thunderstorms roll across a parched region, they can hurl hundreds of lightning strikes into the landscape while delivering little or no rain to dampen the ground. Each strike is a potential ignition, and on a landscape of cured grass, sagebrush, and bone-dry timber, many of them catch. A single afternoon of dry lightning can see dozens of new fires across a wide area, and within a day or two, those small starts can grow into the large fires now dotting Oregon's map. This is how a state goes from a handful of blazes to a full-blown siege seemingly overnight, and it is why fire managers watch the summer thunderstorm forecasts with such dread. The result is a firefighting nightmare. When fires erupt everywhere at once, there is no way to attack them all aggressively in their critical first hours, the window when a small fire is easiest to stop. Crews and aircraft are finite, and they were already committed to the fires burning before this new wave hit. So agencies are forced into brutal triage, deciding which fires threaten lives and homes most directly and concentrating resources there, while other new starts are left to grow into the large fires that keep pushing the acreage total higher. 610,000 acres and climbing is the arithmetic of that impossible situation, a landscape where the fire is spreading faster than any human effort can contain it. The heaviest concentration of this emergency has fallen on Central Oregon, the high country and canyon lands east of the Cascade Mountains, where a landscape of juniper, sagebrush, dry grass, and scattered timber has become a tinderbox. Several of the largest and most dangerous fires are burning here, feeding on parched vegetation and driven by wind and heat into fast-moving walls of flame. But the outbreak has not stayed in one place. Fires are burning in the forests near the great volcanic peaks of the Cascades, out across the eastern rangelands. And in scattered pockets across the state, each one a separate front in a war being fought on an enormous scale. Among the giants of this emergency is a sprawling complex of fires that has grown across a vast stretch of central and north-central Oregon, charring an area so large it would be a major disaster in almost any ordinary year. A complex, in firefighting terms, is a group of fires managed together under a single command because they are burning in the same area. And this one grew from multiple ignitions that spread and merged across the dry landscape into a single interconnected monster. The terrain makes it brutally hard to fight a country of steep canyons, rolling hills, and remote rangeland, where roads are few, and much of the battle has to be waged from the air, with tankers and helicopters dropping water and retardant, while ground crews carve fire breaks and punishing heat and thick smoke. Elsewhere, fast-moving fires have torn toward populated areas with frightening speed. In the region around Warm Springs and Madras, a rapidly changing blaze forced some of the most urgent evacuations of the entire emergency, striking hard at communities, including the lands of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, where the threat is not just to vegetation, but to homes, history, and the fabric of a community's life. Fires burning in the forested high country near Mount Hood have forced their own evacuations as flames climbed through timbered slopes. And another Central Oregon blaze grew toward the scale that firefighters call a megafire, the truly enormous events that consume 100,000 acres or more. Each of these fires demands its own share of the limited resources available. And with 21 new ones now added to the total, the strain has become almost unimaginable. It is natural to ask how a state suddenly finds itself with this many new large fires all at once. The answer lies in a combination of conditions that have come together to create a near-perfect environment for explosive fire growth. The first and most immediate factor is the weather. Wildfires thrive on heat, dryness, and wind, and this stretch of summer has delivered all three in abundance. Prolonged heat has baked the landscape, driving the moisture out of the vegetation and turning grass, brush, and timber into ready fuel. Low humidity leaves little moisture in the air to slow a fire down, and wind is the great accelerant, pushing flames across the land, carrying embers ahead to start new spot fires, and turning a small blaze into a raging front in hours. The second factor is the state of the landscape itself. Much of Oregon, especially the drier country east of the Cascades, is naturally prone to fire, and years of drought and dryness have left the vegetation especially parched and primed to burn. The fuels are cured and abundant, loaded with the raw material for disaster, and waiting only for ignition. So when that ignition arrives, whether from a lightning storm, from equipment, from a vehicle, or from any other source, it meets a landscape ready to explode, and a single spark can become a large fire with astonishing speed. Behind these immediate factors looms the larger, long-term trend scientists have documented across the West. The way a warming climate has been lengthening and intensifying fire seasons, drying out landscapes, and creating conditions favorable to larger and more frequent fires. Outbreaks like this one, where a whole wave of new large fires erupts in a short span, are part of a pattern that has been building for years. Oregon's current emergency is a local crisis, but it is also a chapter in a much larger story unfolding across the entire region, one that has made these explosive, multi-fire events increasingly familiar. Behind every acre and every new fire are people, and it is their stories that give this emergency its true weight. Across Oregon, thousands of residents have been placed under evacuation orders, uprooted from their homes and thrust into frightening uncertainty. Oregon's evacuation system uses 3 levels that have become grimly familiar to those who live in fire country. Level 1 means be ready, aware that danger exists and preparing to leave. Level 2 means be set, packed and prepared to go at a moment's notice. And Level 3, the most severe, means go now, leave immediately, do not wait. Your life is in danger, and every second counts. In this outbreak, all 3 levels have rippled across the state, and the most severe go-now orders have sent families racing out of their homes with whatever they could grab in the final moments. Imagine that reality. You look out your window and see the sky glowing orange, the smoke thickening, ash beginning to fall. The alert comes through telling you to leave immediately. You have minutes to gather your children, your pets, and your most irreplaceable belongings, and get out while the roads are still open. You drive away not knowing if you will ever see your home again, joining a line of frightened neighbors fleeing the same advancing threat. And because new fires have been erupting so fast, some families have received these orders with almost no warning. A blaze that did not exist yesterday, suddenly bearing down on their community today. For some, the worst has already come to pass. Homes have been lost in this emergency. Families returning to find nothing but ash and rubble where their lives once stood. The loss of a home is not just the loss of a building. It is the loss of a lifetime of memories, of photographs and heirlooms, and the small irreplaceable things that made a house a home. And for the many thousands still under evacuation orders, living in shelters, hotels, or with friends and family, there is the agony of waiting, of watching the maps and praying the flames turn away. Evacuation is not simple either, especially in rural areas where distances are great and roads are few. For the elderly, for people with disabilities, for those without reliable transportation, for families with livestock, the challenge of getting out safely can be immense, and a fast-moving fire that erupted overnight leaves precious little margin. Standing between these fires and the towns in their path is a force of firefighters whose endurance almost defies belief. These are the men and women working brutal shifts in punishing heat, breathing smoke, hiking into rugged country with heavy gear, and putting themselves directly in harm's way to protect people they have never met. When a wave of 21 new large fires erupts on top of the blazes already burning, the demand on these crews becomes almost inhuman. Firefighting on this scale is a massive, coordinated operation. There are the hand crews cutting fire breaks with chainsaws and hand tools. There are the engine crews defending homes directly, clearing flammable material and spraying water. There are the helicopters and air tankers attacking from above where the ground crews cannot reach. There are the bulldozers carving lines, the incident commanders coordinating it all, and the vast support network feeding and sustaining the operation. But an outbreak like this stretches even this formidable force past its limits. Crews are pulled from one fire to another as priorities shift. Resources requested from other states and regions take time to arrive. Firefighters who have already worked long, exhausting assignments are asked to keep going as new fires keep erupting. And always there is the danger, because wildland firefighting is genuinely perilous work, and every crew member on those lines is accepting real risk to protect others. They are the human wall holding back the flames, and in an emergency of this magnitude they are being tested as rarely before. One of the most far-reaching consequences of a fire emergency on this scale spreads well beyond the flames, affecting people hundreds of miles from the nearest fire line. That consequence is smoke. When more than 600,000 acres are burning, they produce an immense volume of it, and that smoke does not stay put. It rises, spreads, and drifts on the wind across vast distances, degrading air quality over enormous areas and affecting the health of countless people who never see a flame. Wildfire smoke is genuinely hazardous. It is filled with tiny particles that can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream. And breathing it can cause everything from irritated eyes and throats and coughing to far more serious effects, especially for vulnerable groups. Children, the elderly, pregnant women, and people with heart or lung conditions such as asthma are particularly at risk. And for them, a heavy smoke event can be dangerous or even life-threatening. When air quality plunges into the unhealthy or hazardous range, the guidance is to stay indoors, keep windows closed, use air filtration if possible, and avoid strenuous outdoor activity. The smoke from Oregon's fires has turned skies orange and gray across the region, reduced visibility, and blanketed communities in a choking haze, a constant visible reminder written across the sky that something enormous and dangerous is happening across the state. For anyone living in or near the fire zones, knowing what to do is essential, and it can be the difference between safety and tragedy. The single most important principle is to stay informed and be ready to act quickly. Because these fires move fast, new ones are still erupting, and conditions can change in an instant. Pay close attention to official evacuation information and take it seriously. If you reach the be ready level, start preparing in earnest, gathering important documents, medications, and irreplaceable belongings, planning your route out, and arranging for pets and animals. If you reach be set, be genuinely ready to leave at a moment's notice, with your vehicle packed and pointed toward the exit. And if you are ever told to go now, do exactly that, immediately, without hesitation, and without stopping for more things. No possession is worth your life, and the people who get hurt in wildfires are too often those who waited too long or went back for one more thing. Prepare before any order arrives. Have an emergency kit ready with water, medications, important documents, a change of clothes, and supplies for children and pets. Know multiple routes out of your area in case the primary road is blocked. Keep your vehicle fueled during fire season. Sign up for local emergency alerts so warnings reach you quickly. And talk with your family about a plan so that if you are separated when an emergency strikes, everyone knows where to go. For those with livestock, plan early, because moving animals takes time you may not have once a fire is close. Protect yourself from the smoke as well, staying indoors when air quality is poor, sealing your home against the outside air, and taking special care of the very young, the very old, and those with health conditions. And look out for your neighbors, especially those who may need help evacuating, because in an emergency like this, communities survive by taking care of one another. It is easy to let a number like 610,000 acres wash over you without truly grasping it. So let us take a moment to make it real. An acre is roughly the size of a football field, and 610,000 of them laid side by side would form a scorched expanse larger than many entire cities and counties combined. If you tried to walk the perimeter of the total burned area, you would be hiking for many days across canyons, ridges, forests, and rangeland. Every step of it charred or actively burning. This is not a localized disaster confined to one valley. It is a transformation of an enormous piece of the state. And that number captures only the land itself. It does not capture the homes reduced to ash within those acres, the ranches and farms whose fields and fences and outbuildings have burned, the wildlife displaced or killed. The watersheds damaged in ways that will affect water quality and flooding for years to come. A burned landscape does not simply grow back the next spring. The soil can be scorched and destabilized, leaving hillsides prone to erosion and mudslides when the rains finally return. Habitat that took decades or centuries to develop can be erased in an afternoon. The recovery of a landscape this large is measured not in weeks or months, but in years and even decades. There is also the simple, staggering pace of it. For the burned area to top 610,000 acres in the midst of an outbreak that is still adding new fires means the fire is consuming land faster than it can be counted. Each hot, windy day pushes the total higher, and with 21 new large fires now feeding the growth, the figure is a moving target that climbs with every update. When you hear that number, understand that it is not a final tally. It is a snapshot of a disaster still in motion, one that grows larger with each passing hour of heat and wind. As this emergency continues to unfold, the crucial question is what comes next, and the honest answer is that much depends on the weather. Fire seasons live and die by conditions, and the difference between an outbreak that keeps growing and one that firefighters can finally corral often comes down to a shift in temperature, humidity, and wind. A break in the heat, a rise in moisture, a calming of the winds, Or best of all, a soaking rain can give crews the opening they need to gain ground. But continued heat, wind, and dry lightning can drive further explosive growth and spawn even more new fires to add to the toll, which is the very real danger with a landscape this primed to burn. Firefighters and emergency managers will keep working around the clock, prioritizing the protection of lives and homes, calling in resources from wherever they can be found, and adapting their strategy as the fires and the weather evolve. Some of the fires burning now will be contained in the days ahead. Others may continue to grow. And with conditions this extreme, still more new fires may erupt before this outbreak is over. Through it all, the communities of Oregon will continue the hard work of enduring, of evacuating and sheltering and supporting one another, and eventually of returning and rebuilding when the flames finally pass. It is worth remembering, even now, that Oregon and the broader West have faced fire before and have always found the strength to recover. Landscapes regrow, communities rebuild, people help one another through the worst of it and emerge on the other side. For now, though, the emergency is still expanding. 21 new large fires erupting on top of those already burning. A total scorched area past 610,000 acres. Thousands of people displaced, homes lost, and a firefighting force pushed to its limits. This is one of the most serious wildfire situations Oregon has faced. An outbreak of flame and smoke that has transformed the landscape and upended countless lives in a matter of days. Our thoughts are with everyone affected, with the families who have lost so much, with those still waiting to learn the fate of their homes, and with the brave crews on the front line. If you are in the fire zone, stay alert, stay ready, and stay safe. Listen to the officials, heed the orders, and do not take chances with these fast-moving flames. And to everyone watching, keep the people of Oregon in your thoughts as they face down this fierce and still growing emergency. And hold on to the hope that cooler days and calmer winds will soon bring this weary state the relief it so desperately needs.